Hello again from Metro Manila, the Philippines, Southeastern Asia. Here's a selective timeline of the events of October 1939, and particularly I focus on the events relating to the Second World War, and this was its second official full month. On Sunday, October the 1st, 1939, the Battle of Wytyczno was fought in what was then Eastern Poland, resulting in Soviet victory. A royal proclamation ordered all British men between the ages of 20 and 22 to report for army registration on October the 21st. On Monday, October the 2nd, 1939, the Battle of Hell ended with the fortified region Hell unit capitulating to the Germans after holding out for 3 weeks against overwhelming odds. The Battle of Kotsk began. On Tuesday, October the 3rd, 1939, the Panama Conference concluded with the adoption of a general declaration of neutrality of the American republics, meaning the United States and then the Central American republics and South American republics. The Greek cargo ship Diamantis was torpedoed and sunk by the German submarine U-35 west of the Isles of Scilly, spelled Scilly. Because the ship's lifeboats were not suited for use in bad weather, the U-35 took all 28 crew members aboard and dropped them off at Dingle Bay, Ireland, the next day. On Wednesday, October the 4th, Adolf Hitler issued a secret decree granting an amnesty to all crimes committed by German military and police personnel in Poland between September the 1st and October the 4th. The decree justified the crimes as being natural responses to atrocities committed by the Poles. So another example of Hitler's fake news. On Thursday, October the 5th, 1939, the Battle of Kotsk, the final battle in the invasion of Poland, ended in a Polish tactical victory but a German strategic victory, and so the 5-week campaign aimed at Poland's occupation and partition was over. Hitler flew to Warsaw and reviewed a victory parade in the fallen Polish capital. The Soviet-Latvian Mutual Assistance Treaty was signed, giving the Soviets naval and air bases in Latvian territory where they could position thousands of Soviet soldiers. On Friday, October the 6th, 1939, the Battle of Changsha ended in Chinese victory over the Japanese. Hitler then claimed to want an international security conference in the rubber-stamped German parliament Reichstag. Britain and France rejected these overtures some days later, and the uneventful phase of the war known as the Phony War would drag on until May the 10th, 1940, when Hitler suddenly unleashed an invasion of the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and France, leading in the total occupation of the first 3 countries and then the occupation of most of the mainland France. A Gallup poll was published in the United States asking what should be the policy in the present European war. Should we declare war and send our army and navy abroad to fight Germany? 95% of Americans polled said no. I just wonder how representative that sample was. But I would assume that in October 1939, most of those Americans who cared at all about the world affairs would still have been reluctant to commit US troops yet. On Saturday, October the 7th, 1939, the British Expeditionary Force completed its crossing to France. On October the 8th, 1939, which was a Sunday, Hitler issued a decree proclaiming the annexation of Pomerania, Wielkopolska, and Silesia into the Reich, or Nazi Germany. The Piotrków Trybunalski Ghetto was founded in Nazi-occupied Poland. German submarine U-12 was lost to a mine in the Strait of Dover. On Monday, October the 9th, 1939, Hitler issued Directive Number 6, ordering preparations for an offensive in the West with an initial date set for November the 12th. As we know, it was postponed by half a year until May the 10th, 1940. Hitler claimed in a privately recorded partial conversation with the Finnish president, Mr. Risto Ryti, and the Finnish Marshal, Mr. Gustav Mannerheim, in June 1942, while visiting Finland for the first and only time, that because of the bad weather he had to postpone the invasion until the spring of 1940. Protests from his service chiefs and very cold weather would cause the date of the attack to be postponed repeatedly. So he was at least partly right in that claim. Off Newfoundland, which was then a British colony distinct from Canada, since its government had decided that it simply did not have enough money to keep operating. It had accepted rule by a British commission in the early 1930s. The American freighter City of Flint was intercepted en route from New York to Liverpool by the German cruiser Deutschland, or Germany. The Germans declared the freighter's cargo contraband and took the ship over with a prize crew. While at sea, the Germans painted the fake name Alf, or Alf, on the freighter and hung Danish flags over the sides. On Tuesday, October the 10th, 1939, the Soviet-Lithuanian Mutual Assistance Treaty was signed. French Prime Minister Édouard Daladier gave a radio speech rejecting Hitler's latest peace propositions, saying that a settlement at this time would only consecrate conquests by deceit or violence and would not even prevent preparation for new ones. Daladier vowed that arms would only be laid down when we have certain guarantees of security which may not be put in doubt every 6 months. Admiral Erich Raeder urged Hitler to invade Norway to protect Germany's vital iron ore traffic. And either on that day or early the next day, the three-man Finnish delegation arrived to Moscow for negotiations on the so-called concrete questions. On October the 12th, 1939, which was Thursday, the regions of Nazi-occupied Poland not annexed by the Reich were incorporated into a new administrative unit called the General Government. Wawel Castle in Kraków was made the seat of government. In the British House of Commons, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain formally replied to Hitler's peace offer by saying that a settlement must be a real and settled peace, not an uneasy truce interrupted by constant alarms and repeated threats. Herr Hitler rejected all suggestions for peace until he had overwhelmed Poland, as he had previously overthrown Czechoslovakia. The proposals in the German Chancellor's speech are vague and uncertain and contain no suggestion for righting the wrongs done to Czechoslovakia and to Poland. Past experience has shown that no reliance can be placed upon the promises of the present German government. On Friday, October the 13th, 1939, German submarine U-40 struck a mine and sank in the English Channel. U-42 was sunk southwest of Ireland, by depth charges from the British destroyers Imogen and Ilex. Charles Lindbergh made another pro-isolationist radio speech in the United States and even questioned Canada's right to be involved in the war. On Saturday, October the 14th, 1939, German submarine U-47 penetrated the British naval base at Scapa Flow and sank the battleship HMS Royal Oak. 833 men were killed. U-45 was sunk southwest of Ireland by depth charges from the British destroyers HMS Inglefield, Ivanhoe and Intrepid. On Sunday, October the 15th, 1939, Germany and Estonia signed an agreement on the resettlement of Baltic Germans. And by the way, on October the 13th, 1939, the first negotiation was held between the Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin and the Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov, the Finnish ambassador to Sweden and Councillor of State, Mr. Juho Kusti-Paasikivi, then the other adjutant to the Finnish president, Colonel Aladar Paasonen, and then possibly the interpreter, Mr. Johan Nykop, in the Kremlin governmental complex in the center of Moscow. And there, the Finnish negotiators found out what they probably had already been suspecting, namely that the Soviet Union demanded a portion of the Karelian Isthmus, the outer islands of eastern Gulf of Finland, and then in Finland's southernmost tip, the city of Hanko with its surroundings. In return, Finland would receive a twice larger area of about 5,500 square kilometers in the eastern Karelian towns or districts of Repola and Purajärvi, which had indeed been occupied by Finnish soldiers from 1918 until the turn of the year 1920-1921, or January 1921. And this resettlement of Baltic Germans was a part of the desire of Hitler to prevent those Germans from being essentially run over when Germany would invade the Soviet Union sometime in the future. Most Baltic Germans left between the autumn of 1939 and was it the spring of 1940 or 1941 from Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. On Monday, October the 16th, 1939, 9 planes of the Luftwaffe or German Air Force conducted an air raid on the Firth of Forth in Scotland, damaging 3 British ships and killing 16 Royal Navy crew. Then Supermarine Spitfires number 603 Squadron arrived and shot down 3 of the enemy aircraft. The Nazis ordered all Poles out of the Polish port city of Gdynia. On Tuesday, October the 17th, 1939, Mr. Reinhard Heydrich issued a decree commonly referred to as the Festsetzungserlass, prohibiting all Romani and part Romani from changing their registered place of residence. Switzerland passed a decree defining the legal status of emigrants and forbidding them to engage in activities that were political in nature or in breach of Switzerland's neutral status. Switzerland was, after all, surrounded already on 3 sides in the north, east, and south by the Axis powers, and then with the occupation of France, and then the puppet regime, l'État français, or the French state, the so-called Vichy regime. In June 1940, it would become totally surrounded by the Axis and Axis-controlled territories. Sorry. On Wednesday, October the 18th, 1939, the Soviet Union began its occupation of Estonia. President Roosevelt banned all belligerent submarines from American ports and territorial waters except in cases of force majeure. On Thursday, October the 19th, 1939, the British-French-Turkish Treaty of Mutual Assistance was signed in Ankara. The Haupttreuhandstelle Ost was created to coordinate the confiscation of Jewish and Polish assets in Nazi-occupied Poland. On Friday, October the 20th, 1939, about 2,000 Jews were deported from Nazi-controlled Vienna to Lublin in the General Government of Poland. On Saturday, October the 21st, 1939, Germany and Italy made the South Tyrol Option Agreement. Ethnic Germans in the region would be allowed to emigrate to Nazi Germany or remain and be Italianized. On Sunday, October the 22nd, 1939, fake elections to the People's Assemblies of Western Ukraine and Western Belarus were held to provide an appearance of legitimacy for the Soviet annexation of Poland. On Monday, October the 23rd, 1939, with an offensive on Germany's Western Front looking increasingly unlikely before next spring, French Prime Minister Édouard Daladier announced that French soldiers would receive 8 to 10 days leave every 4 months. Blackout regulations were also eased in many French cities. The city of Flint arrived in the Russian or Soviet port of Murmansk to escape the heavy fog in the Barents Sea. Initially, the Soviets arrested the German prize crew and told the American captain that his ship could leave freely as soon as the proper documents were ready, but this changed after Berlin applied heavy pressure. Another Gallup poll was published in the United States, this time asking which side do you want to see win the war. 84%, or about 5/6 of those Americans surveyed, said the Allies. 14%, or 1/7, expressed no opinion, and only 2% said Germany. The same poll asked, do you think the United States should do everything possible to help England and France win the war except to go to war ourselves? 62%, or over 3/5, said yes. 38% said no. On Tuesday, October the 24th, 1939, Joachim von Ribbentrop made a speech in Danzig blaming Britain for the war and indicating that fighting would begin on a large scale. On Wednesday, October the 25th, 1939, the administration of Włocławek in Nazi-occupied Poland ordered the city's Jews to wear a yellow badge on their clothes. A general election was held in the Canadian province of Quebec. Already since the 18th century or late 17th century, heavily French-speaking, the Quebec Liberal Party, led by Adélard Gobout, defeated the incumbent right-wing Union Nationale party led by Maurice Duplessis. On Thursday, October the 26th, 1939, Józef Tiso became the first Slovak president, immediately appointing Wojciech Tuka as prime minister. Jewish males between the ages of 14 and 60 in Nazi-occupied Poland were drafted to perform forced labor. Hans Frank became Governor General of the General Government of Poland. On Friday, October the 27th, 1939, the Pope Pius XII encyclical Summi Pontificatus was published denouncing totalitarianism. On Saturday, October the 28th, 1939, on the Czechoslovak Independence Day, marking the 21st anniversary of the founding of Czechoslovakia, thousands of people, mostly students, protested at various locations throughout the region making up the former country. Heinrich Himmler issued a secret directive to the SS and police encouraging them to procreate with women of good blood even outside of marriage to regenerate life for Germany. The city of Flint left Murmansk under control of the German prize crew intending to go to Germany. On Sunday, October the 29th, 1939, federal elections were held in Switzerland, won by the liberal-oriented Free Democratic Party. Soviet troops entered Latvia. On Monday, October the 30th, 1939, west of the Orkney Islands, so to the north of Scotland, the German submarine U-56 encountered the British battleship HMS Nelson, with First Lord of the Admiralty or British Navy Minister Winston Churchill aboard. U-56 fired 3 torpedoes that all failed to explode. The U-boat's commander, Wilhelm Zahn, became known as the man who almost killed Churchill. The city of Flint ended up in Tromsø again. Tromsø is a city in northern Norway, to the displeasure of the Norwegians, who were trying to avoid being drawn into any international incidents involving belligerent ships in their ports. Norway dispatched a naval escort to see the city of Flint through Norwegian waters to ensure that the freighter neither tried to stop again nor came under attack from Allied warships.